as you're being interviewed. I approach it a little bit different. I go in supremely prepared and confident that I'm going to get that listing. I want to walk out with paperwork, and if I don't walk out with paperwork signed, I do leave them a packet. My face and my information and my resume is everywhere on it. They're not going to forget me. So I would say confidence and preparedness for sure going into your listing appointment, and explain to them how you're different than any other agent that they're going to interview. It goes a long way.
What are some of the ways that you talk about differentiation? Maybe highlight that a little bit. What do you run into, or how what makes you different?
I am not an agent who will stick a sign in a front yard and walk away and let it sell itself. I'm going to work every day to get that listing sold.
Okay.
Thank you.
This one working on this side?
Yeah, you can
Yep, should be.
take it out.
My name is Scott Smith. I'm in the Westlake office, and appreciate everybody's participation this morning. And I want to talk a little bit about why listings are important. When I started in the business, I thought, you know what, I want to be a buyer agent. I've got that buyer right in front of me. They're going to be looking for a house. We're going to have a sale. I've changed my tune over the last 8 years. It's about the listing. The listing is our core business. That's what we want to achieve. That's where we want to go. When we have that listing, we're always working, even though we're not working, because it's working for us and others are working with us to help sell that listing. As a listing agent, various things happen because it's important to have that listing. Number one, we're going to have more commission. Obviously, the splits are a little bit different. We have the potential to be a dual agent. We have the opportunity to build more buyers from open houses. We have more leads through conversion, Facebook, social media, you name it. We have more market exposure, much of what Bill was talking about. How is it we look for those listings? In my case, I always have business cards. Now you think, yeah, I've got business cards all the time, but when you're out shopping or when you're walking down the street or whatever, do you slip a couple of business cards in your pocket? You know, all the time have a business card because you never know when you have that opportunity. My wife and I like to go to garage sales and estate sales. Unless there's a sign in the front yard, do you have that conversation with whoever is running that sale? And I've had several listings from that and become dual agent from those listings as well. So we're talking about going to this garage sale, and I had almost $8,000 in income from one garage sale. That works. Referrals, those are key. I've been in the business starting my 9th year. I was in banking for 30 years before that, so I've got kind of that background to begin with. But what I find is referrals, that's what keeps you going. You build that one relationship, it expands over and over. So you want to keep those opportunities. Sharper Agent is one of the key tools that we have that continues to work for us. Going back to that, keeping working while we're not working. I've had agents, very experienced agents, who have said, yeah, I should keep in contact with that particular client. Experienced agents say that. Guess what? If we don't keep in contact, they're going to go somewhere else. One thing I've also found is, as a buyer agent, that client will think of you as a buyer agent. They won't necessarily think of you when it's time to sell their home. So Sharper Agent gives you an opportunity to keep that fresh. The purchase anniversary emails, the monthly emails that we have, those are all free and they're all important tools. Bill mentioned in the presentation for the listing appointment, the CMA, I love Cloud CMA. That is the best. Toolkit is good, and sometimes I supplement with that. But with Cloud CMA, it is so easy to present or prepare and to present. Another thing on Cloud CMA is make sure you've got your testimonials from clients. The one on Cloud CMA is okay because it just picks up Zillow. But testimonial tree, I supplement with that. It's ideal because people do pay attention to that. So it's very important that we follow these keys. Bill mentioned when you first start the listing presentation, you want to tour that home first because they feel proud of their home. You go from room to room and make these key points about their home and the opportunities that present themselves there. When you're presenting that CMA, make sure you read it, make sure you understand it. You don't want to be in a situation where here's your marketing analysis, Mr. or Mrs. Seller, and let me read it to you. You don't want to do that. You want to be able to know of it kind of on the back of your hand. And then last, but certainly not least, is ask for the business. Before you walk out that door, you want to have that listing in your pocket, just as my partners up here said. That's an opportunity that we all have. So appreciate it.
Thanks for the little overview. I think it's time to ask some questions. I better take this out of here. I don't have my back to you. Yes.
Pass that one
Okay.
between the three.
My question is, how do you guys overcome, if you're on a listing appointment, if you're not in that area, if you're working another area than you work in usually, how do you overcome objections from people who say, well, what qualifies you to sell in our area?
I'll briefly touch on that. It's kind of a question that is asked once in a while. You're not in our price range. I don't see you selling many homes in our price range. You know what? I actually welcome that. It's not a question, it's a comment. They say, you know, you don't sell many homes in this price range. And I says, you know, I appreciate that because what that shows me is that you've actually investigated you went in, looked at my profile, and you found out that I'm a very successful person, and that's why you invited me into your home to give you this presentation. And then I do agree. I tell them, yes, maybe I don't always sell in this price range, but you know what? I have a lot of houses on the market that I'm selling, that those people are moving up, and those people are going to be potential clients in your price range. So I tell them it's a win-win situation for them. Yes, it's a win-win because you're getting a qualified professional real estate agent that knows how to market your property, but I already have a clientele that are coming up to your price range. So it's a win-win situation. Then I tell them, let's move forward and get the contract signed. And just a little brief adding into that, dot loop, every time you go on a presentation, you should have a listing agreement already filled out just in case they want to do a hard signature. If not, emphasize you can do the electronics.
Mm-hmm.
I can add to that too.
Sure.
Oops. Absolutely have your listing agreement with you and ready to go. And if I don't get it signed that day, I leave it with my client because they're going to be my client. That's how I envision it. And it makes them feel comfortable. Some people aren't ready. They want to read everything. So it makes them feel comfortable. They have a hard copy and I tell them, look, this is everything that I would have you sign the day we do the paperwork. So you can go through and mark it up where your questions are and we'll talk about it when you're ready. And as far as the price difference, you know, it can also go down. I mean, if my average price is $150 and someone calls me and wants to list a $79,000 house, they're like, oh, I know you don't usually go this low. It's not about that. It's about you, my client. It's about my client reaching your goals. Make the relationship.
It is about us as the listing agent representing that particular seller, but to your original question about different locale, I always make sure to stress that Russell Real Estate is the largest locally owned real estate company in northeastern Ohio. So you've got the power of Russell Real Estate. I may live and work in Westlake, and this listing is happening in North Royalton or someplace like that. But we have that presence, so you not only hire me, but you hire the reputation of Russell Real Estate. It goes a long way.
Thank you. One of the other questions that we hear a lot, or my nephew, my neighbor, my brother is a real estate agent. I was thinking about going with them. Just,
Want me to take it?
sure.
Okay. So again, this comes back to talking about why you're different and showing them your resume and how successful you've been. And why would they just pick a family member to make the biggest sale and purchase of people's lives? Pick someone who's qualified. It's really as simple as that. And when you break it down to them that way, you'll get it every time.
Perfect. All right. How about the ones that say, we want to just think it over? You're at the end, you've done everything you can, we're going to think about it. Scott?
Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I appreciate that, that you want to take time and think it over. I would applaud you for doing that. But one more day that you take to think about it is an opportunity you have missed to sell your home. Once we get that list, once we get your home on the market, we have thousands of agents out there working with me to help you sell your home.
Thank you.
So how would you approach going to a FSBO? I've got an appointment this week to go to a FSBO, and they're reluctant to have an agent with them. Would you take your listing agreement with you, or just, because I'm touring the house, just out of nowhere?
FSBOs are, a lot of times they'll, if you go on an appointment, somebody might say, well, I'm thinking about selling it myself. What I do is I always have the listing agreement as these guys have stated. But I also emphasize that according to the National Association of Realtors, for sale by owners only make up about 8% of the market. So right there, you're already in the bag. And then I ask them, what's their marketing strategy? What are you going to do? Are you going to go to the Home Depot, the Lowe's, pick up that for sale by owner sign, slap it in the yard, and hope that everybody comes knocking on your door? Because most of the people are very tech savvy now, and they are looking on the internet. And when they find a home on the internet, like I said in my introduction, they're going to an agent. And what are you going to use? I mean, I know we still use the Craigslist, but it's kind of creepy at times. All right?
Yeah.
Let's just face a fact, so. And then I ask them this, are you willing to call in sick? Are you willing to forego one of your children's piano playing or soccer games or basketball game? Are you willing to give up everything to be there to show that house because you need to be there? If you're selling it on your own, you have to be there to show it, because if you can't show it, you're not going to sell it. So another thing is I emphasize that let's just say that you do get a contract. You're going to be drowning in paperwork. And you need to be very detail oriented, as we know. You might miss one of the inspections required by the city, or you might miss something that's going to turn into a problem, and then you might end up not only losing the sale, but having to hire an attorney to straighten out what you have just created. So I always emphasize, instead of going through that on your own, maybe it would be better off, and it is better off, to go ahead and sign my listing agreement. Let's put the sign up.
Let me add first. So if it's already a for sale by owner, it's already listed for sale on Zillow or Craigslist or wherever they've got it. Go in and treat it like any other listing appointment. A lot of times, those for sale by owners are just getting ready, and they need advice, and they want to see how much activity they're going to get. So don't treat them differently. Don't go in afraid of them. They called you. You got a foot in the door. Now, if you made the appointment under the impression that you're just doing like a preview for a client, be very careful. Don't go in and treat it like a listing appointment. Go in and treat it like a preview. Okay? Leave them your packet, but don't think that you're going to be able to present it to them. Just say, hey, listen, here's my resume. Here's everything. If at any point you're going to interview agents, I'd love to have that opportunity, and leave. Don't
give them the information that that they can use, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like a CMA.
No, no, no.
CMA, you can just go on the computer and get that.
A
quick
professional one?
CMA. A quick CMA,
Or maybe not an accurate one if they go to
Right.
Zillow,
right,
but.
but they don't know that.
My farming area, at least one of them, is a place where I used to live for 17 years. We moved from a family estate to a condo. Empty nest. Anyhow, of about the 300 homes that are in the subdivision, I haven't been in all of them. So how do you support, even though you're familiar with the area, how do you support the contrast in the CMA of other homes on the market that are sold or that you really haven't seen the inside of, like you have in this presentation? For somebody to say, well, my house is better than that house. I mean, you don't have anything to draw on. How do you deal with that?
That's what the listing appointment is for.
No, I'm saying during the listing appointment, when you present,
Well, that's, I don't remember who said it, but knowing your CMA. You know, if you ran the comps for bedrooms, bathrooms, square footage, style of home, and then do your research, be prepared. If you know, 3 out of the 4 homes on your CMA were fully updated and couldn't get any better, you know how to compare those prices to what you're walking into. So you go in, you do your tour, and I actually measure room by room as I'm going through my first tour so that I can have ample time to see every inch of that room. And then when you get to the table and you're doing your presentation, that's where your preparedness comes in, and having done your research, so you know you can make adjustments. If it's outdated, you're going to be on the lower spectrum of that CMA. If it's fully updated, you know exactly what they've sold for. You've got 3 others that are fully updated with the same, bedrooms, baths, all that jazz. Does that
Or
make
you might want to
sense?
make appointments to go see some of the ones on there that you're going to use. And I know agents that do that too. If it's a higher price listing and you know it's some stiff competition and you're going against somebody who's lives in the neighborhood. And one other thing I want to bring up real quick, not to take over, but when you're selling out of your area, remember 90% of the people that are going to most likely end up buying that house don't live in that neighborhood. So what you got to point out is what is our reach? How are we getting buyers in here? You don't have to live in the city. I'm a perfect example of that. I've moved from the West Coast to Ohio, and it didn't hinder me at all. So just a matter of presenting your marketing plan. So.
Let me just elaborate 1 second.
I want to address one thing first before y'all jump in here. It's the one that we hear all the time. We talked to another agent. They said they would list our house at 4%. You gonna match that one?
Absolutely not. No. Absolutely not. I'm worth more than that. I put a lot of time and money into the listings I take, and you can go ahead and go with that 4% agent if you want a cut rate marketing plan.
Just to interject and actually tell you what happened, I had a similar situation in Brecksville and Grand Bay. I'm not sure if anybody knows it. And they says, oh, well, the other agent's going to cut it to 6% or 4%. And I says, really? I says, I was going to go 10% so I can attract the other agents to show this house. And believe it or not, I listed it at 10.
Oh, wow.
I didn't do a 50-50 on that one. But I did give 4%, which enticed all these other agents.
Yeah.
I actually got calls, are you really giving 4%? I said, yes, I am. I kept 6. And just a quick thing on where you were going with that. A lot of times if you pull up the county records just to make sure that it's not a bank owned and show people that maybe some of the comparisons that were lower priced or differentials in the prices might have been a short sale or a bank owned. So that you could do a little comparison on that. And it's all that information is available.
Thanks.
Thank you. I think I'm asking more for advice than a question. I am trying to transfer my career of retail business management to real estate. I have many buyers that I'm working with, a lot of fires in the pan, but I am hungry for my first listing. And if you could tell me maybe from your experience, like I get, you know, some leads from conversion and or from an open house and they're the wrong email, or they gave me, you know, like Ohio Energy's number for their phone number. So hopefully my luck's gonna turn around. But I'm so hungry to get that first listing. Can you give me from your experience maybe tricks of the trade of how you got started with that?
Have you notified every person in your family, everybody on your Christmas list? Everywhere you go, you should let people know that you're out there as a real estate agent.
Obnoxiously.
And I am going to tell you, in my Christmas mailing, I don't send out a calendar because everybody gets 5,000 calendars and they're mostly thrown away, not S-canned, thrown away. Okay, I send out a pad. It costs me a little more, but that pad has magnets on, and it's on a refrigerator to all my friends. People need notes. At open houses, I hand out pads to the kids to take notes. I take these water bottles and I actually make my own label saying thank you for coming to the open house. For your real estate needs, please contact me. They sell them this width. It's only 20 cents for a bottle of water. Hand them out. Everywhere you go, if you're in a bar having a drink and you're walking by somewhere and you hear the word real estate, say, yeah, I'm not butting in, but here's a card. Just be obnoxious, like you said, but in a very professional way, and get your name out there.
You had mentioned about open house. That is one of the key, and that's where I got started more on the listing side, is from open houses. Every time when you have a buyer, the two questions I ask: number one, are you working with an agent? Number two, do you have a home to sell? And you know, it's not going to happen all the time, but you're going to end up with your first listing, and it's going to build from that.
I'll add too. So I actually was in your exact position. I was a regional operations manager for a retail company for a very long time, and I just cut the cord last year. And buyers are life in starting, you know, get comfortable, know the contracts, use that to your advantage. The listings will come, but while you don't have that, get comfortable and know those contracts. And the more you know, people will respect you as having that knowledge and just knowing what you're doing overall. And then when the opportunity shows up, you're ready. So I would use that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of want to go back to the previewing a house. I know that you can be prepared, you can make a CMA, you can do your homework, but there's only so much you can get from the internet without actually going in the house and seeing it. So if you put together a CMA and then you walk into the house and you realize it's totally different than what you prepared, would you suggest maybe previewing the home before you sit down and deliver the CMA, or do you just change it on the fly? I mean, does it make you look not very knowledgeable to walk in with something that's wrong? How do you get over that?
If you're unsure of what you're walking into to that degree, as far as the condition of the house, have to. I've done that. Okay. I've had the worst of the worst spectrum, needs a total gut, and this is the price for that. And then if it's in great shape or even mediocre shape, I'd rather undershoot than overshoot on that, especially net sheet. The CMA, it's an average, so you can call it a low average, a mid, a high, whatever. But on the net sheet, definitely say, worst case scenario, this is what it would be.
So if they would object and say, well, how did you come up with this without even seeing my house first? Then what are you going to say? Because that's the objection is, well, how did you figure all this out? You've never been in my house before.
Be upfront with them and tell them that this is an estimate. You're going to give a range when you do a net sheet or something like that. But one thing I always do is be prepared for that listing. Go back and see when their home sold. See if there are older pictures, because sometimes now on the MLS there are pictures. You'll be able to take a look. What updates have you done to your home? Just let them know that this is an opportunity for me to be able to learn about your home first before we make a final decision about the actual list price.
What about, did you want to say?
Just real quick, the CMA is going to be the day that you're going to be able to gather, and as he says, to make sure you have all the information from the county records. But like I said in my presentation, I think the range on the seller's net where they're going to see the bottom line is going to be the area that they're going to be more, you're going to be able to give them the different prices. But the CMA is going to be pretty cut and dry to what's going on in their neighborhood as long as it's conducive to that area. But if you start getting out and you have a neighborhood that's 500,000 and you're in 150,000, you can't do that. So you got to be cautious on what you put together.
Back to the family and friends one, I have found that, you know, they know I'm in the business and they go, oh, I forgot, and I know 15 realtors, even more. I think sometimes, and I know sometimes, they don't want you to know their money. They think they have to tell everything about them. They have a line for that. It's like, I don't need to know, I need you to go to the loan officer. I need to know that I'm good to go and I'm not, you know, working for nothing. But they really don't want you to know their business. You know? And I know family and friends are like that.
Good point. Very good point.
Good point.
Yeah.
What about that seller that has an objection to the price that you suggest their home will have the most success being listed at? Does anybody want to address that?
So, someone who wants to overprice, don't do it. I mean, if they significantly want to overprice, you're shooting yourself in the foot. They want to try a little bit. On our contract and our listing agreement, you can write in price reductions at a specific date. Get it in writing at that time. Tell them, fine, we'll try it your way for 2 weeks. And on this date, this is the reduction we're doing.
I actually find that if it's so far out of the area that's going to be, you're going to get the price that's, if it's so far out of range, I will tell them that it's better to go ahead and list it with an agent that's going to take that and call me in 3 to 6 months and I'll list it. I've done it. I've also walked out of listings where they were adamant that I'm only going to give you a 30-day, and I says not for the amount of work that I'm going to put into it. That house is still on the market. So I'm watching it. I'll get it. It's going to be another 2 months. It'll be mine. But, and I'm that confident that I will. And I had done it in the past where go ahead and list it at this price that you think your house is a Taj Mahal, and it's not. But they come back to me and I've sold it. So, you know, you just got to stick with it. You know, you got to stick to your guns. And I know, like you're saying, you're eager to get a listing. You don't want to take something so overpriced that everybody's going to look at you saying, why did she even come in at that? You know, because the showings aren't going to be there. And then what you do is you have a seller that's getting upset, you're getting frustrated, and it's not the type of formula you want.
And the other thing that sometimes I even say is, you won't have to look far to find somebody that'll tell you what you want to hear.
Right.
And they, you know, I think it takes them a little by surprise, but sometimes you have to be direct. What about the person that just wants to do a 30-day listing? They're just testing the market and they just want to do a 30-day listing.
Well, just like I just said right there, I've walked out of them because we put way too much time into it. And there's too many advertising dollars and effort to get into a market where you're only going to be 30 days. Now, with the exception, because you know there's an exception to every rule. Let's say the market's a $175,000 market and they say, I need out of here in 2 weeks. And I'll tell them, okay, I'll list it for $149,900. I know Linda just listed one the other day and she sold it within hours because it was priced correctly and actually sold it over the list price. If you can find somebody that's willing to do that, take the 30-day listing, but make sure it's priced below market value so that you can do a quick sale on it.
Did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And one thing to also mention to them, depending upon the season, I mean, sometimes it takes a little bit longer when the snow is up to our knees or whatever. But also, you know, build right in there, it's going to be 30 to 45 days just for the whole closing process at least. So it's impossible to put 30 days on a listing. We're just not going to be able to have the marketing and the tools available to get you that best price. As you mentioned, if you want to list the price really low, yeah, we can do the short term, but in the long run, it doesn't benefit you, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, or Mr. Seller.
To tack on to what she was saying before about walking in and knowing what the house is like, and I can't remember where I heard this, but dropping off a pre-listing packet maybe a day before your appointment and taking the tour then. Do you see any value in that as a differentiator to say, I've already seen your house and I've prepared a CMA based on what I've seen? Maybe the other agents you're interviewing haven't done that. I don't know if there's any value in it. I haven't personally tried it, but I have heard that as a strategy before.
I've done that before. With those, I just give them basic information. I won't go into a lot of detail. It's more, what the county has to prepare. But I want to be able to see the house first to give them the educated market analysis of where they need to be or where they want to be, and to be able to sell that home.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was saying, a day before your actual listing appointment, setting up a time to drop off a packet and take your tour at that point. That way your CMA is, laser accurate.
You could do that. What I would drop off instead of the entire listing package is tell them, here's a little bit of homework. Whether you're going with me or someone else, but I expect you to go with me, you'll find that I'm going to give the great marketing tool. Give them the property disclosures, something that they might not be familiar with, their state property disclosures. It's going to get them filling it out, and believe me, you're going to have to bring another set because they're going to scratch it out 3 or 4 times. So that will get your foot in the door, so that's the way I would approach that one.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, we really have time. We have one more question. If anybody has one more question.
I'm dealing with some investors that are looking at fix-up homes, and a lot of times the agent will say, $1,500 maximum on the income, and I want to know, when they have a dollar amount as opposed to a percent, can you negotiate that, or have you ever negotiated that, on these low-cost homes that are, $25,000?
I work with investors. I don't, occasionally we'll get to that low price point. The way I look at it is the bank's going to set the commission rate, and you're going to probably have to take what they're giving you. But look at it on the positive end. The investor I work with right now has 52 properties. I probably sold 8 or 9 of his in the last year. We're buying one in Solon right now that's bank-owned, and the price point there is more than most people are purchasing property for. But look on the flip side of it, actually the flip side of it, you'll be listing that property. So you're going to get that end of it, and that's what you want to do. You build a rapport with your investor to make sure that they are not going all over the place. Whether they see a home in a newspaper or whatever, that they come to you, and then you'll get the listing, so you'll make your money on that end, and then get a good rapport with it.
So your investors are flipping?
For the most part, he does have a substantial amount that he rents, and unfortunately, you're going to take that low income, but on a couple of them, but on the long term, you're going to make out.
Yeah, and when I first got in the business, that's all I did was investors and those low end stuff, because nobody else in the office wanted to do them. So by working diligently with those investors and helping them get the right property, especially ones that did a lot of them, even if they kept them for rentals, when it came time for him to list his own house, guess who listed his house? Because I'd worked hard and he knew I wasn't making a lot of money on them. But I was always there, and I treated his deal like a $300,000 deal. When it came time for the real, or to relist them, that they're going to call you. They know you're a pro and you're looking out after them. They're going to want you.
And you build those relationships. I've had the same thing with investors. I've sold homes to his family members.
Correct.
Yeah, you just never know.
Okay, our 45 minutes is up. Thank you so much to our panelists. You did a fantastic